Hey guys, welcome back. I will say I wanted to actually come on here because there was a news report that came out 2 days ago. So that would be on the 6th of August. There was reports at Pine Point in Scarborough, Maine, that there were 6 to 7 individual sharks in Pine Point, but all close by to each other. I did research and I wanted to kind of go over this with everybody. Um, but it is very interesting that the spike in great whites has increased by a lot, especially juvenile great whites. Now, not like when they grow up in their adult form. Juveniles, I mean, they're definitely. It says here they can reach up to they can reach up to 6 to 10 feet, 1.8 to 3 meters long, and they frequent shallow coast. Unlike adults that hunt marine mammals, young whites primarily eat fish, rays, and small sharks. But eventually transitioning to seals as they mature, as they get older. Um, but it says here they undergo a series of learning phases as subadults, not quite fully grown, but still learning to hunt. But it sounds like that these sharks will return. I don't remember this happening last year, but I wouldn't be surprised that an outbreak of juvenile great whites goes from Massachusetts to Maine. Or of course we've gotten a lot of warm waters, the weather's been nice, it makes sense. um But moving forward with this, 6 to 7 individual juvenile great whites at Pine Point is definitely serious, but they often have many signs out there of beware of sharks. But I will say steps you can take to not get bitten, or really to if the shark does make contact. I will kind of tell you guys, first off, if the shark encounters you. Now, the best thing to do is, if the shark comes up to you, is you don't turn your back and swim away. You face the shark as you back up. If you're in the that is obviously in the water, you will have to back up to the shore, or if you're out quite a ways, is to back up, still look at the shark. But if the shark swims any closer or tries to bite down, they say to punch or hit the shark on the nose. Um, or to, I think they said to, it'll like poke it in the eye or something like that. But the best ways of avoiding any conflict with sharks is not being around a school of fish. If you see fish swimming around you or schools of fish, staying away from them and seals. Um, because I mean, great whites, as I said, are adapting here in Maine because of the warmer waters, the seal population growing, but really the fact that we've been having way more warmer waters. Juvenile shark great whites come up here every summer, but I feel like they're constantly going from Mass to Maine, but they're making their summer rounds. But tonight I wanted to share exactly the species, the native species of shark we have here in Maine, and there's a lot, but I'm gonna go through sharks you would be seeing more frequently than other species in Maine. And we're going to be talking about sharks you would commonly see despite having warm waters or semi-warm waters. But I am going to start with the common. So these are sharks you will see in oceans. You'll encounter sometimes. So when I think of oceans, are you going to encounter sharks that are near shore? Yes, there's a species that you will see typically off offshore, but they travel in schools. And they're harmless. This is a harmless species of shark, and they're actually the smallest shark off the coast of Maine. Down to a shark that looks exactly like a great white, but we often confuse this shark in Maine as a great white. But sometimes I often look at the at really I look at the movement of the shark, the speed of the shark, seeing how fast that shark is moving in the water. But there's one particular that people will mistake, thinking that it's a 20-foot or bigger great white. And as I said, this is a species that is way more common than us having great whites. Um, but starting with number one, we have the spiny dogfish. Now, the spiny dogfish are the smallest species of shark we have in Maine. They travel in schools, and they typically prefer shallow, um, shallow bodies of water, of ocean. They're harmless. They don't really and they're incredibly small. So I mean, actually it does say they're the smallest species of sharks we have. But I wouldn't think a bite would kill us. Obviously, wouldn't, but the bite may hurt but it won't. It's not fatal. These sharks are incredibly small, are in small size. Um, but it says they're harmless. They will typically swim away. Number two is the blue shark. Now, blue sharks, you will see them typically if you're in a boat or you are in out if you're offshore out in the water, like way out. You might see a blue shark. They are blue in color, and they are they are typically very fast. But there is a shark on this list we have that is actually could be the fastest shark on the planet. And this shark is goddamn fast. I mean, they say it's even faster between fish and shark species. This would be the fastest shark, but there is a fish that is considered the most fastest fish on the planet. Um, but blue sharks, there has not been any documented attacks of people getting bit by blue sharks at all. Um, but out in Maine alone, there's only been two reported and documented shark attacks. 2010, somebody had gotten rammed um, by a poor beagle shark. Poor beagles resemble they're another shark that I feel like gets they definitely have the great white shark look there, but they're much more thicker, more wider than a but they're under the family mackerel sharks. But it says here that poor beagles, so it makes sense that this was not, so really the one of them wasn't even an attack. The other one was fatal, but the so-called shark contact with the poor beagle, because that's the thing. One of the shark reports, um, actually one out of the two that were documented was a poor beagle back in 2010. But it sounds like this shark was just curious. They it says they can act defensive, but they it says poor beagles also are very curious. Um, so and they aren't typically aggressive. Um, I mean, typically they it says that they if if a bite does happen, it's if you handle handle them or somebody handles them the wrong way, you're going to get bit. Um, but poor beagles we do have. They are cousins to the great white. But moving on, we have the basking shark. Now the basking shark, I will say, gets the great white role due to its size. Not so much its behavior, but due to the documented size of these sharks. And many of those basking, and I would state this because basking sharks are a native species. They're at least on the list. They're one of the top four sharks that is incredibly common offshore or around coastal parts of Maine. But these sharks feed on plankton. They're like our whale sharks, except people inflict these sharks as obviously being the length equivalent to a adult great white and the color. And the reason why I know that is because I have a little fish story to tell. But my dad used to have a friend in Biddeford that he would often go, or not often, but if he was invited out on his friend's boat to go ocean fishing, he would go. I mean, he even took my mom and I out, and I got to drive the boat. But one of the stories my dad told me about his friend he had at the time was, I think he was out. What was it? John was out. Because my dad's friend was also named John, and John, I think, obviously was in his boat when he spotted this shark. His thought was that this was a great white. And he called my dad up and said, exactly stated, I just saw a 20-foot great white. And it sounds like it was pretty close to from, it wasn't obviously on shore, but he said it was pretty damn close. And my dad was kind of skeptical of believing that there was a 20-foot great white I mean, so I think my dad ends up going there, but I mean, they saw the shark. They went out on the boat to look at the shark. It was a basking shark. So, I mean, my dad, even though him and John were friends, um, it was a basking shark, which is a one of the most common species we have here that have the size of a great white, and people often get confused with the color and obviously the big dorsal fin that comes out. But if you really, between a great white, so if you look, say if there's a seal, and that great white is going right, that great white's going to go to the seal. Whereas a basking shark, they're there for the plankton, but their mouth is going to stay open. And I would definitely say they're a lot slower. Um, of course, the poor beagle story was not an attack. It was not a confirmed attack. It was the shark maybe being curious. Um, but it sounds. I mean, it says the person who encountered the shark did not suffer any injury. They were able to walk out of the water. Some sharks are just curious and they will swim up to you. Some might even do a bump and not a bite. Because I know bull sharks. I don't think we have a bull sharks here, but bull sharks they perform a behavior what is called a bump and bite, meaning that they're gonna bump into you, and if they're not sure, they might take a bite. And you have sharks too, because that's the thing. Like people, we're gonna show behaviors of feeling stressed, agitated. A lot of animals do the same thing. Sharks are a really good. I would say sharks are definitely an animal that I would say for myself are a bit more hard to really read. But if you sometimes dogs don't have to be most times animals don't have to be vocal to express how they feel, because animals, I mean, one of the many things that occurs is obviously we'd love to have animals talk to us and express what they're feeling uncomfortable with, but they can only show through how they communicate and body language. And sharks typically don't make any noise in the water. We humans in scuba, I mean that includes when we swim with them, have to really observe them through behavior. Um, but bull sharks, I will say, are sharks that survive in fresh and salt water. Um, and they're known, as I said, they an approach they take if they are not sure about something. Man, I can't see myself. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, if they hear the word shark, they're not going in that water, and I don't blame them. I mean, I think there's many sharks that could be harmless, but I can see why people. I mean, Pine Point and Scarborough. I mean, these juvenile great whites are out because the seals being incredibly less less decreased by numbers. There's more. I mean, sharks are here for the food, and they're also here for the temperature. We've been getting extremely hot amounts of weather, and these sharks are all about that. It's the warmer weather that can bring out the bigger and more, I will say, the animal kingdom, the predators. And really, if they're here for the, I mean, warmer waters and the fish, that's the thing, is we have to be careful and look. This is something that I always often tell everybody, is when you enter an animal's habitat, is be ready, be prepared, because things will happen. Attacks occur when you're in an animal's territory. Does it happen all the time? No. I feel like a lot of people, we think we can really claim a territory where these animals are coexisting. Like, it's our fair share to look out for one another, but it's animal habitat that we like to run over, or really not have any sort of care, um or really, if we know we're around something we shouldn't be, and there could be another person yelling to us. But unfortunately, I will say that there was a unfortunate event that happened in Harpswell Beach, which is in Maine, but there's only been one fatal attack on a victim in Maine, and that was a great white. And that was back in 2020. But it was a mother, I believe. Um, but not many shark attacks, like fatal attacks, have occurred. That poor beagle, quote on, was more of a close. I mean, it was really a direct approach. The shark approached this person possibly out of curiosity, as of, if we're discovering something new, we're curious about it. Or if we are like really focused on something, sometimes a lot of us are curious to follow something. You know what I mean? It's the because we do it too, like sharks, like in any other animal. Um, but I will say I have other sharks here that are also native to Maine, but I would say are less I've these are sharks people don't really talk about a whole lot. I did put the great white here as well. Um, really because they are a species of shark. Don't get me wrong, but they've moved up here due to the climate and due to the food sources. So really, we weren't getting a lot of great whites before, especially them being in Florida, being in tropical waters, warm water. Like that's a like hot weather, really hot, is going to infect the water of being a lot warmer for animals like sharks, especially great whites, and the population of their food source increasing. So of course they're going to move into an area like that. But we've got the short fin mako. Short fin makos. So mako sharks are a shark. I've never heard any attacks occur. Maybe in other parts of the world, other U.S. states, but I've never heard of a mako shark attack in Maine. They are a really fast shark. Um, Actually, they're one of the. I think they're the fastest shark on the planet. Next up, we've got the smooth hammerhead. Hammerheads, I would be. I've never heard of a confirmed fatality with a hammerhead in Maine either. What I do know about hammerheads, and this is actually quite interesting, is that they eat things on the ocean floor, meaning that their hammer like head, I think, has like, what is it? They can detect little things like crustaceans. I call them the animal kingdom's crustacean detector, like a metal detector. They can detect animals like rays, stingrays, and other things they eat. Um, but hammerheads can grow to really good big sizes too, huge. Um, there's the bonnet head, which is in the same family as the hammerhead. They're a bit smaller in size. Um, and then there's the sand tiger shark, which sand tiger sharks are typically, you can see them in like aquariums. Um, they're very, I would say between them and lemon sharks. Lemon sharks have a way more scarier face than a sand tiger shark, but and then we've got the thresher shark. So the thresher shark, I would say, may even be the second smallest species we have in Maine, but they have a long whip-like tail that they use to stun prey, but they use it as like a whip. And they're definitely on the smaller side. Um, I would definitely put them as number two for size. But as I said, I I'm not, I mean, I actually am, I'm not so much surprised that we're getting these juvenile great whites, but since we've been getting the warm weather, the seals, but really how I've even heard sharks returning to different areas too from like every summer. Um, but sharks move fast. They travel, you know, I mean, that's the thing with these juveniles. Once they mature, they're not going to be going for, I mean, they'll take anything by opportunity. They're apex predators. But once great whites grow up and then not being juveniles, then we're at risk because I feel like flippers are like human feet in the water. But again, but the good news is the juvenile sharks that were tagged, I think in Massachusetts, I, I, I think we're starting to tag them now in Maine, or hopefully it will start so we know if these juvenile sharks are coming around in, expect places like Pine Point, other beaches around Maine, we're tagging them, knowing that this could be the similar group of sharks or the same group of sharks returning to the same area every summer, moderating moderating the groups, which who is who, which group is which group. And the fact that these sharks weren't, I mean, like they were only like feet away from where, because there was like a spot where it had four, and there was a spot because they showed the whole map of Pine Point of where it was, but it showed like an area having like four and another area having close to two to three individuals being reported. I think, as I said, tagging is a great way of moderating each group of juvenile sharks that come, moderating maybe a returning group that might come next summer. But that's how you can kind of know and act on a group of animals movement, is by tagging them. They do it to a, and that's really through, and it's great people do that. um I mean, a lot of people, I mean, really, when, I mean, the, and this is another conversation we'll have, but wolves that go, what is it, that have traveled from, what was it, Oregon to I mean, wolves are a whole nother. I mean, wolves relied on many prey animals. Like bison was huge. Bison were one of the. I mean, just like Native Americans, wolves, predators lived among people who were native to those lands. Because really, Native Americans, if they had to share, it would be with their people, and it would be with the predators that lived amongst them. They would do it for the meat and the hide, whereas animals like wolves, bears, mountain lions would do it for food. Obviously, it was always food. But starting to, and this was something I learned about, is they each pack of wolves from Oregon are tagged, but the packs are named differently. Different packs go and move on. So knowing which pack is which, identifying what pack is that pack, is people tag animals like that. Knowing which group comes into that state. But it's a good way of moderating groups of animals without causing them horrible death. But that would also mean that these wolves could be passing through. I mean, again, people state that they go after livestock. They do, but again, the U.S., we treat wolves as, I hate to say it, but I feel like, and this is something I've observed, is that when we think of predators, I often don't think of them as illegal aliens, but a lot of people consider them nuisance. But a nuisance is a different word from aliens, because that's the thing. Predators that live off, that had food taken away, and that were over hunted due to what we want from the animals, but really how we took food sources from animals does not help it. Because that's the thing, is when bison started, obviously people hunting bison, like the settlers that came, and wanted to control killed a lot of the buffalo, leaving natives having to, I mean, the food source was not there. And that's where, cattle came in from the settlers. Like, the cattle replaced the bison, the buffalo. And really, that's why we see predators nowadays killing livestock. Do they have to do it? Yes, absolutely. They're a predator. They don't have access to, they don't have predators don't have another access point to food. Meaning that, like us, we don't have to go out and hunt for food. There's freaking grocery stores out there. There's restaurants. Animals like wolves, bears, coyotes, cougars, mountain lion, they don't have that. Even animals, outside of the US. Talk about Africa, African lions. If we take animals that these animals rely on as food, and we kill them all, these predators are not going to have anything to live off of. But many of the things I've learned in my life is that, and I actually want to write a song about this because it's just incredibly important and I value this, that many people like that want a relationship. And I've encountered many people like this, is they focus so much on being appeased and not really in the way of what love is as an action, but being appeased through, if you make somebody angry, they want you immediately to send them money or items or things and you're doing this, what, just to make them feel better. I mean, that is really horrible. That's horrible and non-healthy ways to express how you feel towards someone. And hey John.
You guys got me anything to eat?
No, John.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Suck. You guys run into any heavy rain, Tom?
No.
Nice.
But what is really important is that um I've always, one of the most important things I've learned in my life, and many people have taught me, is that you can say no to something. You're not always going to get what you want. I mean, it's how struggle comes with success. And I think that's one of the I know that's one of the things in my life that I struggled, I wanted people to say yes to me. And but again, that was, I mean, and I've noticed that if you want to appease yourself, that's good. That's good. But I would say use the appease as more of like a treat yourself scenario. Because yes, I can make myself get out of being upset. And that could be appeasing myself by doing things I enjoy, being around my family, my dog. But again, it's I think anybody that believes that appeasing is or somebody who wants to be appeased, a lot of people you'll encounter, especially online, they want you to appease them with money. And they say that's what's going to make them happy. I know if somebody made me angry, I wouldn't want anything like money. I would want that person, especially if I truly felt hurt, I would want that person to talk to me. I would want to work it out with that person, quite frankly, because that's just who I am. I wouldn't be asking for your money or a gift card. I'd be like, I'm willing to talk about this. I want to talk about this. But that's one of the things people know very well about me and have always known is that when people ask you for money or an item, they want to be appeased. Because you can ask the most ridiculous of shit, which has happened to me by people trying to ask me to appease them by giving them shit that is like, again, I can appease you by listening, by under trying to understand, but I'm not going to appease through, I'm not going to pierce my drumstick into the snare drum if I don't have to, right? I'm not going to hit with precision if I don't have to. I'm going to hit the drum, but it may not be a precise hit. It could be a rim shot. But I really, for me, I take the organic style of what appeasing somebody is, or using the lesson of appeasing in my musical abilities, because I think it's one of the most important things any musician can actually get out of. And many ways of adapting is doing things in music that you do not feel comfortable doing. But you have to earn what you want to do as well. But again, I don't have to go through what somebody tells me that would appease them, because I have access to music or really wherever I go. but I really had to work on in my life is choosing what I wanted to do. Stick to one thing. And I remember, what was it? Thursday, I really had to think. I mean, I didn't really have to think about it, but it was either go to program Friday or spend your anniversary with the person that you really love. But that's when you have to keep your promises in check. Is that like, I mean, Kathleen and I know each other quite well, so if we wanted to do something music related, we could have done something music related. But, and would that have been a good time? Absolutely, if we didn't decide to go out to eat. But unfortunately, but many of the things I've been taught in life is if somebody is pushing you into the corner, even if it's just with words you don't like rather than action, those are the people you school. The young can teach the old. Actually, yeah, the young, to make it more respectful, the young can teach the elderly. My aunt made a comment on the phone today to my mom about me that was, I didn't like to hear it, but I know, out of respect, out of not being hateful, is to school her in the terminology she used to my mom about having a lot of stuff in the house. But what and this is how I'm going to do it, is Hopefully she will be available to sit down, or I'm gonna send her. I mean, it's probably better for her to get the full picture. So sitting down with my aunt and watching Hoarders. Hoarders is a TV show that really amplifies what hoarding is, how it can affect people, and the way people leave what they leave in their own house. They live in it. And obviously, the TV show consists of people getting calls from from family members due to the person who's the hoarder. Um, Helping them organize, go through stuff, making their houses much more cleaner to live in. But one of the many things I know is that my mother is never a hoarder, and I would not label her that way. Because the thing is, my mom does she doesn't have the hatred many people have to get rid of stuff. And I know this because every week we clean the church in Freiburg. She always has a trash bag of stuff, of brand new things she has collected that she does not use, but she will donate stuff to the thrift store. I've seen her donate stuff to Goodwill. Many of the things is how can you beat somebody over their hurtful words is you school them. You bring them to school. And I'm smiling right now because I'm not a hateful person. I will say many people can school other people about certain things. But especially on hoarders, there's episodes. I remember one which I will tell pieces about, which I think is very serious. But I remember I saw one where it was an older man who was a veteran. I think he was a Vietnam vet. I can't remember how it went about. But his daughter had called the company, had called the Horde people to come. And she was obviously on her way there to her dad's house. Um, but unfortunately, her dad, and this comes along the PTSD, and then obviously coming from a war that was so devastating and that was just awful how they treated people who were white. Um, was incredibly awful, but this guy wanted. Fortunately, he made many threats, but one of them was to the people who were helping him clean that came in. Obviously, his daughter calling the people from Hoarders to help him clean his house. He wanted nothing to do with it. But he made a big threat. But the thing is, they still aired this episode despite him losing his house and hopefully getting the help he needed. Um, it was still an episode, and I'm surprised they had it as an episode, but they gave a lot of they served a lot of time with this gentleman of in knowing a bit more of his background over time through talking to his daughter. Um, but one of the biggest things in that episode, this you could tell this guy went through hordes of shit, was in the trenches in Vietnam, and stated to the people, the hoarder people that came to help him, he stated to them that he was going to shoot every one of them if they came up on his deck. And it was probably one of the most powerful things I've ever heard somebody say on a TV show that is based off of real life. And for me, I've always been a big advocate for people, older people, being deployed in wars. I always state to people that have been veterans, have been deployed, thank you for your service. I'm respectful in that way. But for me, as much as I hold a lot of cold hearted shit in my life as well, I make sure I welcome those who come home and recognize those who fall, which a lot of times I can't help but not to think about. But this gentleman, I will say, was going through a really hard time. And I think it was the second day going back to his house, he was already waiting for them on his deck, but he had a gun in his hand this time around. Now, coming back, and I'm going to say this because one of the most powerful messages in my life is through a song, Walking on a Thin Line by Huey Lewis. That song is powerful and it punctures what the Vietnam War was about, how people came back from being labeled as freaks. But lyrically, there's a lyric in the song that says label as freaks, loose on the streets of the city. And I remember hearing and reading off that lyric, I teared up, and I teared up fast. But people hold that pain, and that pain it can it can intense and forcefully impact you every day to something like that. But that's the thing is during a war you also encountered unfamiliar territory, and along with that comes unfamiliar people that are unfortunately, I hate to say it, a lot of them, I don't want to say enemies, I really don't. But staying true to really what this man went through, the pain that really was precision in his heart. The house, so really he screwed up enough that he lost everything. I mean, I think the the boundary he did step over was having a gun in his hand as they were approaching his deck, saying he was going to kill who comes in and helps him clean his house. And the thing is, his daughter was trying to talk him over with that, stating, and I know she acknowledged them before they got out of the car, that he's very like, I will say it does not help coming back from another country and people in your state misunderstand you. But I will say, as a true person from America, I would not want to be received a medal or a medal of honor. I would want to be received honor within those who were around me before being deployed. And if those people never would leave my life then and didn't leave as I got home, then. But those are the people you want to have in your life, are those who don't come, those who are appeased through your caring heart and loving nature you share with them, not through money, not through specific items. I mean, getting gifted with things is a great feeling. It's an incredibly great feeling. And it's really that. But my dad's family, they gave me that gift of giving forward. And that's the way life should really be. I was gifted an incredible instrument from my cousin Will, and it's that bass guitar in my room. But knowing how gifting, really not so much item, but it made me have the ability and have the strength to do something like that for somebody else. You don't have to open up a music store to help somebody pick out a guitar or a bass. What I will do if I do open up my music store and I see somebody come in who wants to get into music and who will learn an instrument and get fully involved, my gift to everybody that knows who I am is being nice. Being nice. Being who you are, being not escaping who you are as a person, but fully taking in what is given to you and even things that are not given to you. But anyways, guys, I am going to get off for the night. But I hope everybody took that kind message and obviously the shark stuff, with value information. It is late now. It's 11:31. I am going to go to bed. But thank you all for watching.